And that's where I want to talk to you about the true body intelligence system that you created, because I do want people to hear about the process, because it can allow you to relieve some of that stress, to live in this world that we are in that seems so stress matrix like, but detached from it so much. So can you guide us through the system itself, how you came about it, how people can get involved with it?
Yeah. I had pain, as I shared earlier, and I talked about systems and techniques that I use, like Feldenkrais and the Egoscue method, and then I talked about um, me needing to go a mile and them being able to take me an inch. And the reason for that is that the leverage that those systems generate is limiting. And so the beautiful thing is that we were endowed with a body that can use three different types of contractions, right? You can access concentric contractions to build strength. You can use isometric contractions to recruit more tissue. And you can use eccentric contractions to remove stress, tension, and distortion. The greatest of those three is the eccentric contraction. Why? Because it allows us to pull our body back together by reducing the amount of tension that's in the belly of the muscle. When the belly of the muscle gets long, it removes all of the excessive stress on the tendons and ligaments, because the bones move back into their proper alignment. When the bones are in proper alignment, no one ever has joint pain. No one. You can't have joint pain if your bones are in proper alignment. It's actually an impossibility, right? So where would the focus be? Well, guess what? Your mind, your emotions, and your spirit, they live in your body. So the body's the king. The mind will lie 1,000 lies. The body always tells the truth. And so in True Body Intelligence, what I've set up are 5 systems. Each one of these systems addresses a different aspect of the being. Okay. And so humans are separated into 4 worlds, and they have 7 different layers. Right. And so when someone comes to me that has a husband who is practicing infidelity as a way of reliving the degradation of the inappropriate relationship they had with their mother, then I've got to be able to address this from all sides, right? I got to be able to address it from the generational side. So I use a system called Body of Light, which allows me to use the spoken word to access where these disjointed levels of consciousness live. And then we defragment and pull that aspect of their consciousness back into alignment. Let's say somebody comes in and they're like, my back is stiff. I've done everything. I've been to yoga classes. Nothing's working. I use a system called ice-centric strength. And what I do with ice-centric strength, we use isometric, eccentric, and concentric contractions to pull that aspect of their body back into balance. So it's very physical. Other people, they're emotionally out of balance, right? And they come to me, and I use a system called Maher. And what I do is I use my feet, and with this rhythm in combination with very specific breathing pattern, I get their breath to match their true level of sensation. The typical person that I've met, whether they're 7 or they're 77, from my research, and I've done 100,000 hours of practical research into this field, the average human is at about 86.4% of their maximal saturation of stress, tension, and distortion held in their physical body. That's the average, right? Which means there's people that are above that, and there's some people that are slightly below that. But the average Joe, the average Jane is easily at 86.4, 86.5, 86.6%. So when I go into the Mashing and we get their breath to match their true level of sensation, what happens? That discomfort level that's a 10 out of 10, it drops down immediately. Had a woman here yesterday, lovely, lovely, lovely human, right? We're working on that part of her body. And she's like, oh, it's like a six. And I, I know the process. So I said, why don't you bring your breath up to a six? So her discomfort level was a six. Her breath was at a one. She brought her breath up to a six. So the emotional body controls the breath. The emotional body is the body's ability to feel. So guess what she started to feel? More sensation. Then she went from a six to a seven. A couple minutes later, she went from a seven to an eight. And then she got to the point where she's like, I'm at a 10. And then like 3 minutes later, she's like, I'm at an 11 out of 10. And then she got all the way up to 13 out of 10. And I said, keep matching your breath with the sensation. And boom, suddenly she went from 13 to 12 to 11 to 10 to 9 to 8 to 7, 6, 5 to 4. And that happened over a matter of like 15 minutes. So she went from pure pain and discomfort to neutrality. And so I've created these very unique ways of working with the body and the energy to reduce your lifetime accumulated stress load. And if someone wants to develop themselves in a way where they feel very magnetic, very excited, very electric, I use a system called Shocking, which stands for shaking medicine, that the Kalahari Bushmen invented, which is a minimum of 60,000 years old. It's in their history, they'll tell you. And then I teach them how to do these things to themselves, because for me, I want them to be empowered. Like I'm allergic to codependent, dependent professional relationships. Okay. All right. I'm okay with some codependent, dependent relationships in my interpersonal relationships because I can't control where the people in my life are in their development. Right. I can be an example, but I can't control them. And so professionally, though, I have some control on how I'm going to relate with this other person. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to be able to teach them how to use Vestersize and how to use transmutations and attunements to bring their body, brain, and nervous system every single day into supreme alignment. I was in New Jersey recently, and there's this young man who's had a hate-filled relationship with the people in his life. And all I did was educate, remove tension and stress and distortion, checks in every day. He says, hey, I had a good day today. The next day, oh, I had a good day today. The next day, oh, I had a good day today. Why? Because I taught him how to remove the daily accumulated stress that he has, and also how to remove a chunk of his lifetime accumulated stress load. So every day he becomes less anxious and more excited. Every day he becomes less fearful and more confident. Every day he becomes less angry and more loving. And every day he becomes less self-righteous and more righteous relative to himself, his family, his community. And so we use all of these systems to simply reduce the lifetime accumulated stress. Why? Because when your lifetime accumulated stress load reaches a certain level, you are hired and required to have a chronic symptom. So anyone, any listener that's tuned in right now, what you have to understand is that every single symptom that every single person has is related to some level of unresolved, lifetime accumulated generational stress, tension, and distortion. Everyone's. When you reduce the lifetime accumulated stress, tension, and distortion, the symptom disappears because now you're addressing the problem.